Modern Queen Tales presents Always Plan for Betrayal. The glow of Adam's unlocked MacBook illuminated the dark mahogany of his study desk. A silver flash drive, the exact one missing from my workbench in the basement, jutted from the side port. I stepped onto the Persian rug, my bare feet sinking into the wool, and approached the desk. Adam slept upstairs in our master suite, heavily sedated by a combination of expensive scotch and his own suffocating ego. He had left his laptop open, a rare slip of his usually meticulous security habits. I touched the trackpad. The screen flared to life, revealing two open windows that rearranged the entire architecture of my reality. The first window displayed an official document from the United States Patent and Trademark Office. The title read, "The Synapse Core, a Neural Link Data Interface." I scanned the text. The technical specifications, the intricate hardware schematics, the thousands of lines of foundational algorithmic logic, they were all my precise, painstaking work. 3 years of my life, coded in the dead of night, soldered under a magnifying lamp while my eyes burned with exhaustion. Under the field labeled Inventor, the document proudly displayed a single name, Adam Argent Duchard. A hard, icy block settled in my stomach. I dragged the cursor, minimizing the patent filing to reveal the window layered directly beneath it. It was a messaging application. The most recent photo showed Julie, Adam's newly appointed vice president of marketing, tangled in the white linens of a hotel bed in Geneva. The timestamp placed the message during Adam's solo investor tour last week. Her accompanying text sat below the image. "Can't wait to celebrate your genius tomorrow at the launch, baby. The Duchard legacy is secure." Adam's reply followed. "You have no idea. The world changes tomorrow, and that little basement hobbyist is completely clueless. I've already transferred all the core files to the Orpheus servers. The patent cleared. We own it." I stood perfectly still in the quiet study. The air conditioning hummed through the brass floor vents. The scent of cedarwood and expensive leather filled my lungs. I processed the information with the same analytical detachment I applied to my code. My husband of 4 years had stolen my life's work, claimed it as his own, financed its production with his family's generational wealth, and planned a life with another woman using the profits of my intellect. He viewed me as a convenient, naive asset, a quiet, nerdy wife who spent too much time tinkering in the basement while he played the charismatic visionary in the boardroom. I reached into my pocket, withdrew my encrypted phone, and photographed the screen. I captured the patent filing, the transfer logs, the timestamps, and the messages. I ejected the silver flash drive, slipped it into my pocket, and closed the laptop, leaving the screen exactly at the angle I found it. The Duchard family built their empire on shipping logistics in the 19th century and expanded into global venture capital in the 20th. They possessed absolute power in financial circles. Adam launched Orpheus, his new tech startup centered entirely on my Synapse core, using a massive capital injection from the Duchard family trust. His father, Richard Duchard, had co-signed the venture, leveraging their historic real estate portfolio and international shipping assets as collateral to secure the billions needed for global manufacturing. They expected the Synapse core to make them trillionaires. I returned to our bedroom. Adam snored softly, his handsome, patrician face relaxed against the silk pillowcase. I lay down beside him, staring at the ceiling, and began to architect his destruction. The next morning, Adam adjusted his silk tie in the mirror. He radiated a smug, electric energy. "Tonight is the night, Dahlia," he said, shooting me a dazzling smile through the reflection. "The Orpheus launch. Silicon Valley is going to bow to the Duchard name. I am very proud of you, Adam." I said. My voice held steady, perfectly modulated. I handed him his platinum cufflinks. You worked so hard for this. It takes a visionary to see the future, he replied, sliding the cufflinks into place. I couldn't have done it without your support, Dahlia. Letting me bounce ideas off you, watching you tinker with your little side projects, it inspired my final design. The sheer audacity of his lie hung in the morning air. He actually believed he possessed ownership of my creation simply by proximity and theft. He believed his money and his name transmuted my genius into his property. I cannot wait to see you on stage, I said. I spent the next 3 months perfecting my silence. As Adams scaled Orpheus globally, hiring thousands of employees and building a monolithic glass headquarters in San Francisco, I played the supportive, quiet wife. I attended the galas. I smiled for the paparazzi. I shook hands with senators and tech moguls who praised Adams' transcendent intellect. Behind the scenes, I executed a flawless, invisible strategy. I hired Marlon Connolly, a ruthless, deeply connected intellectual property litigator who operated out of an unmarked office building in D.C. I handed Marlon a pristine sequence of cryptographic proof. I provided the original GitHub repositories hosted on a private server I maintained since my days at MIT. Every single commit, every line of code, every hardware diagnostic report contained embedded, verifiable timestamps proving my authorship years before I even met Adam Duchard. This is a total kill shot, Marlon said, reviewing the digital forensics on his massive monitor. He essentially copy-pasted your entire neural architecture. He didn't even bother to rename your private variables. Adam is arrogant, I explained, sipping black coffee in Marlon's office. He doesn't understand the code. He only understands the application of the code. He saw a working prototype and assumed the software was a simple, static product he could just lift. And the Duchard family trust? Marlon asked, pulling up the public financial disclosures of Orpheus. Adam used the family trust to guarantee the manufacturing loans for the hardware, I said. He cross-collateralized his entire bloodline. If Orpheus fails, the creditors have legal authorization to liquidate the Duchard estate to recover the manufacturing debts. When do we file? Marlon asked. His eyes gleamed with predatory anticipation. We wait for the global deployment, I said. We wait until the devices are in the hands of the consumers. We let the financial liability reach its absolute maximum. Adam failed to audit the software. He hired top-tier engineers to build the user interface and the sleek hardware casing, but they treated the core algorithmic engine, my code, as a black box. They were explicitly instructed by Adam not to alter the core logic, terrified they might break the genius he claimed to have written. Because they never audited the core, they never found the Leviathan Protocol. I always build contingencies into my systems. The Synapse core was designed to interface directly with human neural patterns, transferring massive data packets in milliseconds. Such a powerful tool required a failsafe in case the prototypes fell into the hands of corporate espionage. Deep within the firmware, disguised as a routine memory garbage collection subroutine, I hid a specific logic bomb. It required a unique cryptographic handshake to remain dormant. The system looked for a ping from my personal encrypted server every 30 days. If I sent the kill command, the Leviathan Protocol would execute. The code would command the microcontrollers to enter an infinite, cascading loop. The hardware would overheat, fuse the delicate internal processors, and permanently brick the device. The data transfer protocols would simultaneously scramble, rewriting the operating system into random alphanumeric static. The hardware would become expensive, melted paperweights, The date of the global consumer launch arrived. Orpheus hosted the event at the Moscone Center. 3,000 investors, tech journalists, and celebrities packed the auditorium. Millions more watched the live stream. The stage featured a massive, curved LED screen displaying the sleek Orpheus logo. I sat in the front row, wearing a tailored, black, Alexander McQueen dress. Richard Duchard sat to my left, leaning on his silver-handled cane. Julie, the mistress, sat a few rows back, wearing a diamond tennis bracelet I recognized from our joint bank statements. Adam stepped onto the stage. The crowd erupted into applause. He wore a black turtleneck and jeans, a calculated uniform of technological royalty. He paced the stage, a headset microphone resting against his jaw. "Today, we redefine the limits of human potential," Adam announced. His voice boomed through the pristine sound system. "The Synapse Core is no longer a concept. It is a reality. As of this morning, 4 million units have shipped globally to our pre-order customers. Hospitals, financial institutions, and individuals are plugging into the network right now." He paused, letting the magnitude of the moment wash over the crowd. "We are tracking the live activations," Adam said, gesturing to the massive screen behind him. The screen shifted, displaying a global map. Thousands of glowing blue dots began to populate across North America, Europe, and Asia. The crowd clapped. The Duchard family legacy was actively expanding its empire across the digital realm. I reached into my Prada clutch and retrieved my phone. I opened a customized terminal emulator application I built precisely for this moment. The interface displayed a simple black background with a green command prompt. I typed the execution phrase, Leviathan, initiate. I pressed enter. I looked up at the stage. Adam continued his speech. "The speed of data transfer will..." The massive screen behind him flickered. A sharp, high-pitched whine emitted from the stage speakers. One of the glowing blue dots on the global map suddenly flashed crimson red, then disappeared entirely. Then another. Then 10. Then 1,000. A cascading wave of red swept across the global map. The blue lights vanished, consumed by a rapidly expanding darkness. Adam stopped speaking. He turned around, staring at the screen. "We seem to be experiencing a minor visual glitch with the telemetry map," he said smoothly. He tapped his earpiece. "Control room! Reset the feed!" A man in the second row suddenly cursed. He held an Orpheus demo unit in his hands. A thin wisp of acrid gray smoke curled from the charging port. The sleek glass screen cracked down the middle with a sharp pop. Across the auditorium, other journalists and VIPs began dropping their demo units. The devices were overheating rapidly, burning their palms. The sharp smell of melted plastic and fused silicon filled the cavernous room. Adam's face went completely pale. He tapped his earpiece frantically. "Talk to me!" he hissed into the microphone, forgetting to mute his broadcast feed. "What is happening to the servers?" I watched the exact moment Adam Duchard realized he was witnessing the fiery end of his entire life. The realization washed over his features, stripping away the arrogant veneer and leaving a terrified, confused man standing under the harsh stage lights. My phone buzzed. A message from Marlon Connolly appeared on the screen. "All kill commands verified. Global hardware failure is at 100%. The system is dead." I replied, "File the injunctions." Panic consumed the Moscone Center. Investors shouted into their phones. Tech journalists aggressively filmed the smoking devices scattered across the floor. Security personnel rushed the stage, escorting a shell-shocked Adam behind the massive LED screen. Richard Duchard gripped his silver cane, his breathing heavy and ragged. "What in God's name did he do?" the old man wheezed, staring at the smoking debris. "Adam made a miscalculation," I said quietly, standing up from my seat. I smoothed the front of my dress. I walked out of the auditorium, leaving the chaotic noise behind me. The crisp San Francisco air hit my face as I exited the building. A black town car waited at the curb. I climbed inside, poured myself a glass of sparkling water from the mini fridge, and watched the financial markets begin their brutal, automated response. The dismantling of the Duchard dynasty occurred with terrifying, algorithmic speed. Within exactly 12 minutes of the Moscone Center disaster, Orpheus's stock plummeted by 94%. The market halted trading, but the damage was terminal. 4 million consumers now held useless, melted hardware. Hospitals filed immediate emergency injunctions regarding corrupted data. The class action lawsuits began forming before the hour concluded. At precisely 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Marlon Connolly filed our intellectual property lawsuit in the federal court. The filing was a 500-page masterpiece of lethal litigation. It contained the indisputable cryptographic proof of my ownership, the logs of Adam's theft, and an explicit demand for the immediate transfer of all patents, trademarks, and associated intellectual property back to my sole possession. Alongside the IP lawsuit, Marlon filed a massive fraud claim against Orpheus and its primary backer, the Duchard Family Trust. We demonstrated that the entire financial foundation of the company was built on stolen assets. Adam attempted to call me 42 times that afternoon. I blocked his number and drank a cup of green tea in my hotel suite overlooking the bay. The true devastation lay in the cross-collateralization. Adam's arrogance had convinced his father to guarantee the manufacturing loans using the Duchard family's historical assets. The creditors, massive international banks completely devoid of sentimentality, watched the global failure of the product and the immediate, undeniable proof of IP theft. They realized Orpheus was completely insolvent and facing billions in fraud penalties. The banks executed the dominion clauses in their loan agreements. They triggered an immediate call on the collateral. 2 days later, the repo men arrived at the Duchard family estate in Connecticut. I received real-time updates from a private investigator I hired to document the collapse. He sent photographs of federal marshals changing the locks on the heavy iron gates of the Duchard manor. He captured images of moving crews carefully carrying out Richard Duchard's prized collection of original Dutch masters. The fleet of vintage Aston Martins and Rolls-Royces were loaded onto flatbed trucks, destined for liquidation auctions. The Duchard Family Trust was entirely frozen. The court appointed an independent receiver to strip the family of every liquid asset, every property, and every offshore account to satisfy the mounting debts of the Orpheus collapse and my fraud settlement. Adam returned to our shared home in Silicon Valley to find my belongings entirely gone. My clothes, my books, my servers, all vanished. The only item left in the house was a manila envelope sitting on the kitchen island. The envelope contained 2 documents. The first was a divorce petition, citing his infidelity with Julie, accompanied by the photographs I took from his laptop. The second document was a formal notice of his complete financial ruination. Adam finally cornered me 3 weeks later. Marlon Connolly arranged a mandatory mediation session in a sterile glass conference room in downtown San Francisco. Adam walked through the doors looking 20 years older. The bespoke Tom Ford suit hung loosely on his frame. The manicured confidence was gone, replaced by the twitchy, hollow exhaustion of a man who had lost his entire universe. Richard Duchard sat beside him, requiring an oxygen tank. The patriarch glared at me with a mixture of pure hatred and dawning terror. I sat across from them, wearing a sharp gray pantsuit. Marlon sat to my right, organizing a thick stack of finalized court orders. "You planned this," Adam rasped, his voice scraping against the quiet room. "You let me build the company. You let me take the loans. You knew the whole time." "I knew you stole my property," I said. My voice offered no emotion. "I knew you were sleeping with your marketing director. I simply allowed your own actions to reach their logical, inevitable conclusion. You destroyed my family, Richard Duchard wheezed. 200 years of legacy. Gone. We are being evicted from our own homes, Dahlia. My grandfather built that estate. Adam destroyed your family, Richard. I corrected him. Adam leveraged stolen property. You co-signed the fraud. The market corrected the error. I am simply reclaiming what belongs to me. Adam slammed his fist on the glass table. You bricked the devices. You caused the failure. The devices functioned exactly as I programmed them to, I replied. You claimed you invented the software. If you were the inventor, you would have understood the architecture. You would have removed the security protocols. Your failure to comprehend the technology you stole is the sole cause of the hardware failure. Marlon slid a heavy document across the table. This is the settlement agreement, Marlon stated. My client assumes total ownership of all patents, trademarks, and source code associated with the Synapse core. My client also assumes ownership of the physical Orpheus headquarters, which we purchased out of bankruptcy receivership this morning for pennies on the dollar. Adam stared at the document. His hands shook. Sign it, Adam, Marlon said. If you refuse, we proceed to criminal trial for the IP theft and the wire fraud. The federal prosecutors are waiting for my call. You will serve 20 years in a minimum security facility. Adam picked up the heavy gold pen. He looked at me, searching my face for a flicker of sympathy. For the quiet, compliant wife he thought he married, he found only the cold, unyielding architecture of the trap he walked willingly into. He signed the document. The Duchard dynasty officially ended on page 47. 6 months later, the final accounting concluded. Adam and Julie moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in a deteriorating section of Oakland. Julie left him 3 weeks later when she realized the Duchard money was never coming back. Adam secured a job managing a regional logistics warehouse, an ironic echo of his family's original shipping empire. A significant portion of his meager paycheck was garnished to pay the remaining, insurmountable legal debts he accumulated during the fallout. Richard Duchard passed away in a modest assisted living facility, the stress of the total financial collapse accelerating his failing heart. The historic Duchard Manor was purchased by a foreign investment conglomerate and turned into a boutique luxury hotel. I stood in my new office on the top floor of the building that formerly belonged to Orpheus. The massive glass windows overlooked the San Francisco Bay. The gold lettering on the reception wall now read, Stratton Technologies. My engineering team, a group of brilliant, meticulously vetted individuals who actually understood the code, sat in the conference room, waiting for my final approval. We stripped the Leviathan Protocol from the firmware. We refined the power distribution arrays and optimized the neural handshake logic. We built the hardware correctly, utilizing ethical supply chains and robust, transparent manufacturing processes. The original vision, my vision, was finally ready for the world. I looked down at the city. The sun reflected off the water, bright and sharp. There was a distinct mathematical purity to the entire process. I bypassed the messy, emotional confrontations of a standard betrayal. I ignored tears and screaming arguments. Instead, I applied logic. I allowed arrogance to act as a force multiplier for destruction. I let the thief build the castle, and then I triggered the structural collapse from within the foundation. I walked into the conference room. My lead engineer looked up from his tablet. We are green across all diagnostic boards, Dahlia, he said. The Synapse core is stable. Deployment ready. Initiate the launch, I said. I sat at the head of the table and watched the telemetry map populate with steady, unbreaking lights. The system worked flawlessly. I reclaimed my work, my life, and my future. The equation was perfectly balanced. The end.
If you enjoyed this quick escape, Hit the subscribe button for new stories twice a week. Until then, I'll see you at the next flip of the pages.